with a bit of context of how we're looking at graph databases is in the supply chain. And the automotive supply chain is famously very complicated, where we have hundreds of suppliers across the globe. We have thousands of parts that need to go on each car. And if you're missing one of those parts, you can't build that car. So we have a very sensitive and large, complex supply chain. And when COVID happened, we found that whole countries were locked down and suppliers were unable to manufacture parts. And suddenly our supply chain was a lot more vulnerable than it's ever been before. So being able to kind of quantify the risk and dependencies that we have and face in our supply chain was really, really important at the time of COVID, and still is.
I am in charge to manage all, I can say, COVID-19 in Ivory Coast. For that, my team and myself, using graph techniques like Tiger Graph, we are able to get patient information and to identify location area of COVID plus patient. For that, we targeted frequent location of the patient were called at in one time or calling from during night time. And for that, we are able to identify the home location and also to know if these COVID plus people are respecting the confinement or not.
So when you have a lot of sensor data, what do you do with it, and what better place to start linking that data to everything else than your graph database, which already has everything else about all your members? So I think that's kind of a more graph specific outcome, is when as people get more virtual and the medicine becomes a lot more virtual, you're gonna have more and more reliance on analytics, because that the data is flowing in now.
The kind of impact COVID has had on the business and supply chain is that this proof of concept we've spoken about looking at orders to parts and being able to kind of quantify the risk. And that was a piece of work we did with graph databases back in November. And we knew it was important and valuable. But when COVID happened, that was when the business suddenly realized they absolutely needed this tool. And so in a way, COVID accelerated the uptake of analytical solutions like the graph database I'm describing. And so I definitely think a kind of shift to appreciate and understand the importance of analytics in this uncertain time, and the importance of data when possible, when current processes have kind of gone out of the window, has been quite a clear, exciting transformation, I guess, that's been happening.
We need to be more proactive to know if we detect one COVID plus, how we can make sure that all the contacts of this COVID plus are known, how you can inform them and track them. Using graph techniques, we are able now to do this in real time. This is one of the biggest transformations with COVID-19 pandemic.
The thing that's kind of stood out most as a result of COVID is that's the same for kind of everyone across the organization. And what we found is a huge amount of kind of cross-functional work that has come out of this, where heightened the dependencies that everyone has on each other with commercial, purchasing, manufacturing, they're all in similar positions. And again, the graph database that we developed that connects the world of orders with the world of parts, which is kind of the missing piece that was to connect the two before, is now this graph database. We've actually been able to bring together groups of different departments to be able to understand what's the impact of this kind of demand change that I want to do on your supply chain. And similarly, what's the impact of these supply issues that are happening in this country, this lockdown, on the commercial demand that we want to be meeting. So being able to connect these business questions together at a time when they have, I guess, a huge amount of importance and uncertainty is really, is probably the biggest.
Never go back to normal. Disruption is here to stay. Try to understand your entire supply chain, your value chains and everything else. And the best tool for that and for a lot of other things is graph. So my last word is get graph.